I did forget one thing, and that's a flag. We always start our commissioner meetings, and I don't see one here, but we always start our commissioner meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance, so if I could have you rise, I'm going to go ahead and lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, this is a meeting of the York County Board of Commissioners. It is a special meeting, April 12th at 7 o'clock. And so I'll ask Kelly to take the roll call, please.
Brooks.
Present.
Holden. Baumsberger.
Present.
Sykes.
Present.
Over.
Present. Joining us at this meeting is the York County Planning Commission. And at this time, I'll introduce Joe Seldy, which is our zoning administrator. Rod Matlock is a member of the Planning Commission. Gary Everly, member of the Planning Commission. Aaron Caban, member of the Planning Commission. And Roger Morris is a member of the Planning Commission. Unfortunately, this last week, one of our members resigned, and that would be Max Peterson. And at the next commissioner meeting, which is coming up the 19th, we have a name of Carl Heine that we will be bringing forward for the commissioner's approval on that. So that will round out that committee once you guys get going. Open meetings law is posted on our website. I also have copies up here on the front table. Proof of publication for the meetings was in the newspaper April 8th, or I'm sorry, yep, 8th. It was also on our website, and they were also posted at the city offices, at the courthouse, at the library, and at the post office is where we posted those. First off, guys, we need to review and approve the minutes of April 5th Board of Commissioner meeting. If you would, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Sykes.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
Baumsberger.
Abstain.
Holden. And Over.
Yes. And we also need to adopt the agenda for tonight.
I would move to adopt tonight's agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Brooks.
Yes.
Baumsberger.
Yes.
Sykes.
Yes.
Holden. Over.
Yes. Okay. Can everybody hear? I hear a no, and I see heads shaking in the back. Jim, you're the only one? Can you hear now? Yeah. Is that better? Okay. I don't want to blow you out, but we do want to make sure everybody can hear. The main thing for tonight is to have a conversation. What I was hoping to have would be a conversation between the Planning Commission and between the commissioners regarding zoning for York County. I know that the main topic will be obviously solar that has brought us together, and I wanted to hear some ideas that are going to get thrown out between these two groups, because as you know, the Planning Commission will take the ball essentially and go through their motions and bring recommendations forward to the commissioners for approval, and we hope that sometime in the near future that we see this. So I thought it'd be a good idea for us to get together and throw some ideas back and forth at each other of maybe what we're looking at. So there we go. I guess you guys have anything to add while we're... Okay. So basically, has everybody had an opportunity to look through not only our own zoning, but other... Joe, did you forward some zoning information? I mean, you talked about Sarpy County.
We got all those.
Was one, Sarpy County you had in front of you. Did anybody happen to look into other ones too? Like I know Cass County has a set, Saunders County has a set, Lancaster County has a set. There's different ones.
Fillmore County has one.
Fillmore County, I didn't get to those yet. I've read plenty of the other ones. So it seemed to be that the main things that were being covered was, first off, it was used under a conditional use. Not shall this happen, but it may happen under a conditional use. is one of the things that I wrote down. There's a permitting process, there's setbacks, screening. One of the hot ones is decommissioning. Securities liability involved in that. One of the other ones that I came up with was fencing, security. I mean, we're talking about an electrical system that is going to be supplying electricity, so I would think that some kind of fencing, some kind of security would be, a good idea. Another one that I wasn't sure about was, what about environmental study or erosion control on properties? I don't know if it would be an NRD matter or something like that. So
Yes, part of that, I talked to the NRD, and on the irrigation wells, they don't have to be pulled, but they got to be capped.
Okay. So those are some of the things that I thought maybe we could visit about and some ideas to go from there. So under conditional use is, to me, is kind of a no-brainer that any time one of these projects are brought forward, they should have to go through a permitting, a conditional use process, not just like some of our zoning say, we shall, as long as they meet all the rules, we go ahead and have to give them the zoning permit. But I think that this should be something that they have to go through the process, to go through the steps to be approved, to have the public hearing on a conditional permit.
Not only by York County, by the state of Nebraska also.
Yep, yeah, I would agree.
You- Bill, maybe one down there would help pick that up a little bit too.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I had wrote down on top of my list, was that it should be clearly stated that this is an exception and that it is possible through a conditional use. That it's not just something that if we put zoning rules in that we want to see, that as long as they conform to that, they can just go and do it, but that renewable energy, whether it be wind or solar, would be an exception to what York County views as permitted use, so that we would allow it, but only through a conditional use process.
While you have the mic, do you have some other additions?
Yeah, so I was going through some different options, looking at other counties and whatnot. So just some things that, setbacks from property lines, both property lines and residential property lines. I think we need to kind of discuss what would be best for our county. Let's see, I don't, some of the different regulations have a well laid out what would need to be in the permit when they're applying. And so I don't know if that's something that we want to talk about as far as, how detailed do we want their plans to be when they come to us. Do we want it down to panels will be on this part of this section in this or this quarter in this section. So some discussion around that. I too had wrote down both economic and environmental studies as far as, if we're taking land out of production, what's that going to do? What is the economic benefit of projects like this to communities? I think one thing that I feel strongly about is the decommissioning plan. I think that we do need to have some guidelines around that and make sure that there is securities in place for that decommissioning. I wrote down some screening and landscaping. You talked about fencing, and so I don't know if, you know, around residential areas or maybe even around, the whole thing, if we need to require certain living landscapes or screening so it's not driving down the road, you're not seeing those. I know some people that have contacted me that's their concerns is the visual aspect of a large solar facility. And then one thing that I think is worth talking about, and a lot of people that have called that have shared that they're concerned about such projects is property values. And so one set of regulations I was reading, they had put in what they called a property value protection plan. And so it laid out some different guidelines, I guess, or a process if an unparticipating party felt that their property value had gone down due to this project, that there was a process that they could go through to have an evaluation, and then, you know, if it was deemed that it did in fact go down, there was a process in which compensation was allowed. I don't know if that's necessary, I don't know if it's something that it's worth probably discussing. That's some of the top things that I had on my list here.
I don't see anything in the Darby County regulation like you saw, Joe, as far as what they adopted for setbacks. There's nothing in there. And then also on the decommissioning end of it, I see where it reads, once they quit generating electricity, they have 6 months to decommission everything and get it cleaned up. But say, I don't know if that has enough teeth in it. Because, you know, they can shut down for 3 months, they can crank up, this thing could go on and never get decommissioned. You know, so that's a real concern of mine also.
I think we have to have teeth in that. If they build this project, then sell it to somebody else, if we don't have teeth in it,
Right.
then what have we got?
Right, I agree. And with that, you know, some of the ones that I was reading, there was a process where actually transfer of ownership had to come before the planning board and the county board before it was before a sale would be approved to ensure that those financials and everything and the decommissioning plan was transferred.
What I don't understand is, you know, if somebody's in the program and want out,
Mhm.
what kind of provisions are gonna be made
Sure.
for that?
Right, yep.
I also remember when they came to us, you know, on one of their visits, I believe they talked about their setbacks being like 450 feet. That,
I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was
a lot.
I think that sounds a little bit.
In Lancaster County, non-participating property with a dwelling is 100 feet. Non-participating property without a dwelling is 50 feet. Participating property with a dwelling is 0. Participating property without dwelling is 0. And then public or private roadway is 50 feet. So Lancaster County is, if you are in this residential house, it's 100 feet around you. And I think that should be kind of a minimum, personally.
Right.
You know, 100 feet. I don't know. Who knows their building size, but how far is this building across this way? I mean, it can't be
Right,
too
yeah.
much shy of that, can it? Or is it right in there?
Well,
You know, so that doesn't seem like that's getting too far. I mean, I would think that would have to be kind of a minimum in there for me. You know, I do like the fact that there's differences with the property, non-participating and participating, you know, to put it that way, so that the landowners that are non-participating next door get a little bit more than say the participating would be. I think that's a good way to do that. One of the things on screening that I wondered about was, do we look at natural versus man-made? Trees are going to be a little bit slower growing, but a 40-year project, I think personally I'd just soon look at blue spruces as I would some kind of screening that's going to break down man-made over a number of years. There's a possibility that there could be some requirements put in there on starting out with a minimum of 4 or 5 foot tall tree to help get this going versus a seed. But that could be some, and I know that once again, Lancaster is probably of all of them that I read that I like the best. They had a combination of shade trees and evergreens that they required to go throughout. And I kind of like that idea too. It's just a little bit different.
Question, what brought that solar unit to pick York County out of where they could go?
Well, the transmission line, I think, is
It was the main thing?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
When you brought that up, that raises another question with me. Once that thing would be put in operation and it goes into that substation, what's guaranteed that power is going to stay? I have one constituent ask me, is that power going to stay in York County? It's going to stay in the state of Nebraska, or is it going to go out?
That's a
I
good
think that's
question.
something that we really need to look at. If we're going to generate that power, we need to keep it here also.
And also another thought that I had, what are you gonna do with all the center pivots out there? They have to tear down the center pivot, remove them, or what? I mean, there's quite a few center pivots in Western Cool.
I don't know that some of that is us, as far as in our rules. I would guess that would be a private landowner to have to take care of the pivot, just like you mentioned, Roger, about capping the well. I would assume that would be, out of our hands there. But it's a valid point. There's those things that have to be done, but that wouldn't be us. I do know that as we visit a little bit about decommissioning, that does seem to be, and once again, I'm referencing Lancaster's. It seemed like all of them had rules down the road, meaning it was 10, 15 years down the road where securities were really put in place. And I think that it would be up to us in this, if we decided we wanted security sooner than that. Unfortunately, as we look outside tonight, we've got some weather event going on. What happens if an unfriendly tornado comes along and strings this all the way up to Aaron's house, which is close to the interstate? What happens then? And I think I would feel more comfortable with some form of securities from the get-go versus 15 years later. I know that it was mentioned about salvage price would be able to recoup so much, but I would think that some form of securities, whether it be general liability insurance or some proof of that, would be a good idea to have mentioned in there also. I know that there's different like line of credit or that, but I just think like a liability insurance would be a really good idea to ask. And then I want to make clear too that the fencing I was talking about, that would be fencing for security, not necessarily fencing for the aesthetics. Because I just think that requiring, even when we drive out here and look at NPPD, you don't go in there anymore. There's 8-foot fence, barbed wire, and everything else to keep it going. I think that would be, a great idea, whether we put it in our rules or not. But I think it would be a great idea. One of the other things that I guess we haven't touched on yet either would be how to define what kind of solar or even wind, but large scale, medium scale. If I wanted to put one, if I lived in the country and I wanted to put one on my house, am I under the same rules as others? Do we have to define, by kilowatt or however it's done? Do we have to define, different sizes? to say residential, or, you know, however we would say it, commercial residential. I don't know if there would actually be a third one in there or not.
Right.
Hopefully, if people want to do this, that we're not regulating it so they can't afford to do it, or they have to do that.
Sarpy County had some issues and everything, but I think they kind of addressed backyard, that would be addressed. But then you have shops, you have livestock confinement, and they might want to put something like that in. You know, something like that goes over a reuse bid or something.
Right.
So it's going to be kind of hard to sort through all that, but it needs to be.
Yeah, I think so, and maybe it's as easy as calling something commercial and, you know, something residential, and residential don't pertain to these rules, you know.
If we let this thing go in, what are we gonna talk about, the seed corn dealer, the fertilizer dealer, the marketing, those types of deals? I mean, that's gonna be, you take 5,000 acres out of production, that's gonna create business now in that area.
And I believe that's what Daniel was talking about, possibly the economic, obviously, study too, to put in there. Yeah, I think those are all good questions. Those have any, you got something?
Reading through this section here from Sarpy County, I see they have a maximum 15 feet for their panels. That ain't gonna work in this country. And they told us about 9. I think it really needs to define to us what we can do with the land underneath these panels before we even set a height. You know,
Right. I don't think anybody wants, in this part of the country, want to raise a whole bunch of shit.
No. But, you know, if there's some kind of vegetation, I don't think we want, you know, goats and sheep under it. You know. But I think EDF has to be a little bit more clear with us what we can do underneath those panels.
See, I lost what I was gonna say. But talking about decommissioning, I agree. I think that day one or near day one, 5, 10 years down the road for me is, I think that's too long. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that the decommissioning security would be if the company is up and left and the solar panels are out there not being used, but the company is nowhere around. So then it falls on the county or the landowner to clear this up or do something with it. And so, in my mind, and like I said, if I'm wrong, and somebody knows that, correct me please, but in my mind, there was some talk about, you mentioned the salvage values. If I'm gonna have to go out and clean this up, I don't care about salvage values. They need to have something in place to cover all of my costs for cleaning it up. That's the way I feel about it anyway. And then I think there's some, a lot of these have some review dates, like every 5 years they review it and see, okay, has labor costs gone up and now the decommissioning cost is up, then they have to re-up their securities. So I think some reviews in there might be good. A couple different, and I don't know where it will land as far as what we would require. Some places have a set per acre amount for decommissioning. Others are, you know, a engineer's estimate. But in my mind, we would want at least the full estimate cost, and possibly more than that.
It is.
If I might, and I'd like to start off, Joe Selby, zoning administrator. So many of you have hired an attorney and you're together as a group, and your voice does count, absolutely. I don't want to get on the wrong foot with anyone, but since you have a lawyer, I'm willing to talk to anyone with permission from your attorney. I just, out of respect for my own professional license, that's just the approach I have to start with. So I don't mean to shut anyone out or don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. I'm happy to meet with you and communicate with you. Just waiting for some sort of indication from Mr. Margin at Rembold Lukey that he's okay with that since he is your attorney. So I appreciate you working with me in that way. I hope you don't hold it against me being a lawyer, etc. Some important things, I think that as an approach generally, we could have a very detailed agreement, a contract with the third-party lessor or whoever it is that's going to operate the solar arrays, and that plan should detail that they prove up on liability and general coverage for the system itself. I think they should, whoever it is, a third party as part of the decommissioning plan should pay money into a trust in advance pursuant to a plan to take it all down and move it away as though the land was restored to exactly how it was prior to the installation of the solar array itself. And we definitely don't want to be in a cleanup and junk sale scenario. If a hailstorm or tornado comes through, there should be insurance coverage out there for all of those things. And it's our opportunity to dictate the setbacks and the visual appearance of these things. If you want to specify berms or height of trees that they have to grow to, grass and erosion studies. It's really our opportunity in that way to have a sophisticated contract that should then be filed like a deed with the register in the Register of Deeds office. I think that's generally how it would work with an agricultural lease, but similar type deal. And then obviously it would go without saying sensitivity to any wetlands, state parks, right-of-ways, scenic or historic areas. I think we want these, a limited color swatch of what these arrays can look like. Signage, maybe we want a Huskers, UNL, or Barney sign out there, but no Pepsi-Cola, no advertising, no offensive colors. And then there will be some, federal compliance concerns by the airport. Any agreement should incorporate, I think, the Nebraska Public Power District, their standards. And that way we can ensure that the production or the functioning is what we want. And some of this power is, I think, going to get sold as a commodity. And also, I think it could be very valuable if we're in a scenario, maybe 2 years ago when Texas froze over our grid, we had rolling blackouts in Sarpy County because of that. So this is a way to protect everyone, really, their health and safety in terms of power outages, possibly avoiding a big gas penalty because the sheriff doesn't want to let all the inmates freeze at the jail when it gets real cold. We don't want that. Of course, the sheriff, thank you for being here, Sheriff Paul. Your input, emergency response input, how is the fire department going to respond? State fire marshal, those things are all important considerations. If we want height or noise level restrictions, this is really our chance to make it as detailed as we can for everybody that's then got to live with it. So that's kind of our idea, our goal. I think that any geothermal spring, whatever it might be, I think this type of alternative energy is consistent with the comprehensive plan from 2013, so that's our guideline. The way that we make rules, which should be based on that. And it's going to come as no surprise. The comprehensive plan details, goals of economic expansion, generating alternative energy, just to reduce the overall price of energy out here. So I really think it could be good if we're gonna run a Bitcoin mining operation that will use a lot of energy, lots of power to do that. Yeah, so absolutely willing, happy to meet with you, or if you want to send a letter or an email or call, whatever it is.
Joe, while you have the mic, could you explain a little bit of the process for them that the planning commission will go through, and then possibly do you have a meeting lined up for the planning commission already?
No. So we will notice a public hearing and present some rules eventually and vote on them, and then it will go to the board. And so we kind of want, this is a great opportunity now, in advance of that, to really hear from people specifically on details that they think are important. But we will have a future public meeting, absolutely, at least one.
Are you thinking sometime this month yet, you're gonna try to get the planning commission together?
I'm not quite sure.
12th, hopefully? Hopefully.
We could. There is a possibility, yes. It's a 10-day notice period, so.
For the planning commission to meet, or for a public hearing?
For a public meeting of the planning commission.
We need a meeting, public invited, to formulate something.
Okay,
Then go into a hearing process.
okay,
But we can't do all that at one time.
okay. So we will, like I say, we'll appoint, hopefully, the member, your 5th, next Tuesday, and then, from there, and it's not that I'm trying to rush the thing, but it's nice that we finally got going, that we keep it going, to keep some continuity, obviously, to go through it. So would you foresee having one public hearing?
I foresee getting together as a planning commission, going over everything and formulating something, and then having a call for a hearing after that. So,
Okay,
we come to a hearing with this plan. And then at the end of that hearing, if we want to tweak it, then that'd be our priority
Right.
before we send it to you.
and then we would have the public hearing at our
Yeah.
meeting sometime.
So there had to be 2 public hearings.
Right, there should be 2 public hearings.
But I don't see how we can formulate something and have a public hearing in one night.
No, I didn't know if you had
Too much, no.
had a meeting started yet, or planned yet, or anything like that. Okay,
There's a lot of material to go through to
It's a lot.
come to, and we hope that you people on the planning commissioners have read the book or know what's going on in that book when we start making zoning rules and regs.
We may come as a group and have a lot of questions that can't be answered. We have to have another meeting,
right?
but it's got to be done right.
Right.
We don't want to go in there haphazard.
Well, and your public hearings have to have 10-day notice, but your meetings wouldn't have to have a 10-day notice, I wouldn't think.
I thought we would have that for us
Because-
to meet.
Well, for ours, as far as the open meetings law is considered, there is no time frame in there. There's just reasonable time.
Well, that's,
So, now the public hearing is different, where you'd have to have longer, but for that, I think you could meet on a different setup. Wouldn't have to be the 10-day meeting notice. I sure don't think so. If you're ruled underneath that.
we'll leave that.
Open meetings law.
We'll leave that up there.
Thank you, yes. It depends, that's the classic legal answer.
Well, we operate on 5 days, is typically what we do. But like I say, if you read through that, it's reasonable.
Sure, absolutely. I do think it would be important for some time to get feedback or coordinate something with the group from the pool, and their attorney should be. I don't know if he's here. It only looks like there's 2 attorney guys out there, but anyway, so,
Well, I think there's no question whether the public needs to be involved or not.
Right.
They definitely do.
Yeah.
EDF have to be involved in thinking
I don't know that they necessarily have to be involved because this doesn't, we're not necessarily writing regulations for them, but for York County and projects similar to what they're proposing.
And I think that's one thing we have to remember. We're just gonna set the zoning regulations. It's up to the people as far as whether they want to sign up to have this or not.
Exactly.
So that's what our,
Jack.
Well, unfortunately, when I come out here with my phone, figuring out I have internet access, I don't have. I had some questions, and I've read some other news articles from different newspapers about a moratorium on setting these hearings and everything, so to give everybody a chance to really learn about what they want to do. In the newspaper today, there's a half-a-page article about eminent domain. Seems like every time we've asked a question about eminent domain, it gets lawyer talk. They don't want to answer the question one way or another. But I think that's kind of important to know before people would make up their mind whether they would sign for easements. You know, and some of the other questions that Daniel brought up about taking down the equipment and everything else. If you sign a 100-year agreement, easement, that easement's still going to be there whether the company's there or not.
Sorry.
didn't they say at one time, though, Jack, that they could not impose eminent domain as far as the solar system? Did they say that? I thought that's what EDF had told us. You know, we had that situation with the Keystone and Nixon pipeline. There, they could initiate that. I don't think, according to them, the way they talked to us that day, that they can even impose that. That's a lawyer question.
Right. I think you're correct today, but I think all it takes is for them to go to a court and say, we want it, and if that court decides, you know what, we'll grant it to you. I don't know, but I think that you're correct. Today, they could not come in eminent domain, and hopefully it stays that way, but I would say that if they got to the point where they felt they wanted to use that, they might look into that. Whether or not it would be granted to them, I don't know, but I think there would be avenues for them to try and get that power. I don't know, but it's possible.
And I think that's maybe something that the planning commission could put into their guidelines also, you know, that they can't impose eminent domain. But that don't mean, like you said, Daniel, some court can come along and overturn that thing. Right. But, you know, anything can happen.
Some of the things that have been overturned, it's kind of amazing, isn't
Okay, did you have something else,
I
Daniel?
just one point, I don't know, like, as far as when a company would come to the planning board, I don't know if we want to put any guidelines as far as, you know, do they have an interconnection agreement already? Do they have an agreement to sell the power already? I don't know if those, like, if we want to, at what stage do we want them to come to the planning board and to the commissioners and seek that conditional use permit? Do we want, you know, is it something that they, at the start of the process, do we want them to have an interconnection agreement with the Southwest Power Pool already? And do they have an agreement to go somewhere with this power? Just thoughts of whether or not that would be good, bad, indifferent, I don't know. But then along with that, one of the things that has, with EDF's project, everybody's feels that it was cloak and dagger for so long. Is it something where we say, you know, in order for a conditional use permit to be considered, before you go and get land leases and easements, you need to come and tell us you're doing that. I don't know, I think that would run into some pushback from companies that would want to come in, but just something to consider and think about.
I would say you'd also want to really look at a conditional permit fee that would be substantial.
Yeah, I would agree. That'd be fine.
Okay, guys, I guess you guys have been writing a lot of notes down. Did we have anything else to add? Or was that, like I say, I know we weren't gonna come up with all the answers tonight, but a good start of what we were thinking, maybe what you guys could incorporate, looking into. I wanna make it very clear too, that what is being done is rules for all of York County. Is not just, obviously, it's affecting all of you right now down in the pool area. Hopefully that we hear from the rest, because we don't know that in 6 months it isn't gonna be by Gresham or up by Arborville or someplace else. I mean, we need to look at this as all of York County, and hopefully participation from everybody from York County. That being said, do you guys have anything to add that you want to, we need to keep people up? Oh, well, it sounds like the wind's starting to die down a little bit out there, so.
Well, I would just say, remind everyone that you don't want to take legal advice from the adversarial party in the EDF or any corporation. I think the eminent domain thing is kind of a red herring that just seems odd and not really consistent with our purpose or the way that eminent domain operates. And these people are salespeople. It's a Delaware corporation. They're a citizen of Delaware or the Cayman Islands or wherever they're incorporated at. So I don't think we have an obligation to them. I think we have an obligation, obviously, to all of our York County citizens. And I think that would just invite unintended consequences if we tried to incorporate EDF or really any corporation into this process. Right. And I think that things would become more inefficient in that way. We don't need any more lawyers involved. I think 3 is good, 3 to 4.
Anything, guys? Okay, if I don't see anything else, I'm gonna adjourn the meeting. And what I will tell you is you have a captive audience. We'll shut the owl down when I adjourn. I don't know if you guys are in a super big hurry, but they're here. If they want to talk to us, I'm willing to talk to them too, and we can hang around. We rented the building, so we have it. So if I don't see anything else at this point in time, we'll adjourn.